Hello, race fans, and welcome to episode number 2 of the Turn 5 Racing Podcast. I am your host, Steve Ovens, along with our co-host, Clint Miller. Clint, we've got some brand new equipment sitting here ready to go, and I think this episode number 2 is going to be the best one we've done yet.
Yeah, well, the first one was pretty good. I think people are really looking forward to hearing it. Our name's getting out and around there, and we got a lot of good stuff to talk about.
Yeah, we're up to almost 240 followers on the Facebook page. We've got almost 100 hits on the YouTube channel, and this thing has really taken off, and we thank you, race fans, for listening in to us. And I heard something that Steve Post said on their Wing Nation podcast yesterday is, as far as having more content, more podcasts, more shows, having more water in the pool is not necessarily a bad thing when you're talking about trying to promote short track racing, and that's what we're trying to do here.
We definitely want to, get the word back out there that, hey, Black Rock's still alive, Woodhall's still alive, Canandaigua, Weed Sport's coming back, and we got to get people in the stands. They're missing out on a lot of good stuff.
Absolutely, and speaking of missing some good stuff, we had some good stuff on Saturday over at Black Rock Speedway for the Empire 100 weekend. And practice was canceled on Friday, which I think was definitely a good decision once we got over there Saturday and saw the track that the track prep crew is trying to work with. I think there was a lot of factors into that, weather being one, and they're trying to work in a new surface. And I really, when I was over there at Black Rock on Saturday, I had some opinions that or opinions of my own, and I'm not going to share those, but I really think after having a few days to think over it, I just don't know what else they could have done. And the one thing that I will say is they did everything in their power to get that show in on Saturday.
Oh, without a doubt. We got there at 8:30 in the morning, and the mud that was being slung around by the grader and the Terragator, it was just a moppy mess for whatever reason. And by the time the hot laps got started to the heat, and it just, they busted their butt to give the racers a good surface to run on, and it was a long day.
It was, and they certainly used a whole lot of fuel in the Packer trucks, because the Pavosky boys and their guys with the track prep crew, they were working tirelessly. They wanted to start hot laps around 10:45. Obviously we knew that wasn't going to happen. They wanted to start racing around 1. And I think by time we were all said and done, the makeup feature rolled out about 3 o'clock or so, somewhere in that vicinity. And, to be honest with you, I think from a former racer, and I know, Clint, you speak from a race team perspective of working on the street stocks and the late models, I think to have a good surface to work on that's not going to tear your equipment up, you were willing to wait.
Oh, yeah. I mean, ideally, you want perfect track conditions all the time. It's not going to happen. There's so many factors that come into it. Humidity, rain, wind, literally how dry it is. And if they did put a new surface on it, when the first part of the year, sometimes it's hard to catch a hold of. But yeah, you definitely want a smooth track, and by race time it was.
Absolutely, and I think what they ended up with for the features was pretty good. I mean, considering everything that they had in hot laps were rough for sure.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Without a doubt, they had guys that had some parts failures, and they went back to work on the track, got it going. The heats were a little bit better, but they knew there was still more that they needed to do. And fortunately enough, they did put that time back into it. And really, by the time the features rolled around, I mean, yeah, that the big hump coming out of 2 was still there. If you got a little too high out by the wall, was still there. But all in all, the rest of it wasn't too bad for the features.
Yeah, the bottom half of the racetrack, bottom third to bottom half, was real racy. Looked like it had a lot of bite in it. I talked to some drivers, and they were real impressed with how far the track had come from hot laps to feature time.
Well, we're certainly going to break down the rest of the events there at the Empire 100 and the rest of the features that ran down there at Black Rock Speedway on Saturday. Also on the show tonight, we've got the winner of the Empire 100, Cory Costa, is going to call in on the Turn 5 hotline.
I can't wait to talk to him.
Yeah, that's going to be a great interview because, I was watching the live updates that we were doing for Turn 5, and really until the end, I know Cory ran up there in the top 10 all race long, essentially.
Probably top 5, probably.
Even top 5, but really until the end, he just he was just there, and he was waiting for his opportunity, and then he got his opportunity and pounced there at the end and ended up taking the win.
Yeah, and there's some stuff that we'll talk about that I want to ask him that transpired over the last 6 or 7 laps that really made for an awesome race.
For sure. So we're going to talk to Cory. Also, calling in on the hotline tonight, we're going to talk to the 2013 IMCA champion at Black Rock Speedway, Phil Yaw, is going to call in. Beat Dick in the Dirt, Rich Karlnowski, by 1 point to win the championship. And we'll talk to him about that. And then we're also going to talk to a representative from each 3 of our show sponsors. And we certainly don't want to forget our show sponsors: Creekside Entertainment, Penn Electronics down on Main Street in Penn, and RaceChaserOnline.com. We've got the old man in studio tonight. Stu Ovens is going to talk to us about Creekside Entertainment, so we're excited about that.
Absolutely.
Clint's going to talk to us about Penn Electronics, and then we're going to get Tom Baker on the line from Race Chasers. We have a huge lineup for tonight's show, and when we return to Turn 5, we're going to dive into our breakdown of the Empire 100 weekend at Black Rock Speedway. You're listening to Turn 5. Penn Electronics is your Radio Shack dealer in Penn. They have everything to keep your phone, computer, and home theater system sounding sharp. Visit them on Main Street in beautiful downtown Penn, or call them at 315-536-7700 and see our favorite salesman, Clint Miller. You're listening to the Turn 5 Racing Podcast, your home for news, results, discussion, and driver interviews. Welcome back to the Turn 5 podcast. I'm Steve Ovens with Clint Miller. And Clint, we're going to head over to the Turn 5 hotline.
Going to talk to Cory Costa here, the winner of the Empire 100 here at Black Rock Speedway. Cory, man, I want to tell you congratulations. It was an awesome run.
Thank you. I'm pretty proud.
As well you should be.
As you should be, absolutely. You run over there on Saturday for the 100. How kind of take us through the beginning parts of the day? We all get there and we're waiting for the track prep, and then they cancel time trials. How did that change things for you guys mentally?
Well, I was trying to go hard out of the gate all day. I had a makeup feature to make up before the 100 lapper, so I was trying to get through that in one piece because of the track conditions. And when they pulled the grader out, my heart kind of dropped. I didn't know what we were going to have for a track to even race on for that, let alone have a car locked after.
Yeah, absolutely. And that had to be on your mind because during that makeup feature, a lot of cars had mechanical issues and came out with damage and such, so they had to be on your mind.
Was there ever a time when you were out there for the makeup feature that you said, hey, listen, guys, I'm only going to take a couple laps and pull in to save the car for the 100?
Yeah, actually about every other lap I thought that, but the next lap it felt pretty good, so I couldn't pull off.
Yeah, that's understandable. They say that's what cures a driver's ailments when the car handles good. Okay, let's talk about you. Where did you start in your heat?
I started dead last. I think it was 8th place.
So right from the get go, you've got to get up and go because with time trials not having time trials to fall back on, your heat race was essentially going to determine where you're going to line up.
Yeah, for sure, and I gave it all I had. I got a little hung up on a couple cars there at the beginning, but I made my way up to third. I almost got second. I had a pretty decent car.
that was the one question that I did want to ask you. How was the car handling in the heat race, and then crossing over to the 100? Did you guys have any issues you had to fight throughout the day?
No, actually, I left the car pretty much set up for a rough track all day long. I knew the track was going to be pretty rough, so yeah, I didn't have any handling issues or anything. Maybe about halfway through the 100 lap, I didn't have any brakes, but fortunately, you can race that track without brakes.
Right. Okay. Let's start with this. All right. So you're sitting in the lineup. You're ready to go out for your World 100. You're not really sure what kind of track you got. You know it's a little better than what it was because the track crew worked real hard. So what's your mentality for the first 50 laps of the race?
First 50 laps is you just got to stay out of all the trouble, which there was a lot of it in that race, and just got to try to make your way to the front and stay out of the trouble. You'll be there.
Where did you start from, Cory, in the feature?
I started 12th.
Okay. So you're kind of mid-pack. That had to make you a little bit nervous. You almost have to run the first 50 laps like you're running at Talladega. You got to stay out of the trouble to make sure you're there at the end.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So when we go to the halftime break and you go in to your crew, did you make any changes at the halftime break?
Well, we had tires there that we were going to put on, but I started the race with some brand new tires, and they didn't even get chewed up or didn't even look at any heat to them. So I said, let's just throw some fuel in this thing and go, because it felt good.
That's one thing that BlackRock is always been pretty lenient on tires. So I guess that's probably a plus.
Now,
yeah, for sure.
Now with Woodhull, and I assume Woodhull is your home track, your weekly track.
Yeah, I run there every Saturday night.
Okay, now you were just talking about tire wear. Between the races that you would run at BlackRock and then a full season at Woodhull, do you really have a lot of tires you go through during the season?
Well, if you want to run up front, you got to have good tires on there. It does make a heck of a difference, and you'll know it's a big difference if you have a used up set on there versus a new set.
Roughly speaking, how many sets do you guys go through during the season?
I probably put a set of back tires on at least every 4 to 5 races. That's
okay.
if they're just all 20-lap features.
Okay.
So if you were doing an extra distance race, you'd probably put a new set on to start.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Very cool. Now, you got toward the end of the race there, and, I mean, you really ran top 5 most of that event. You get down toward the end, had a lot of cautions. Did you think you had anything for them there at the end? You're just trying to kind of wait to get there?
Yeah, I was waiting for the last 20 laps to really start a charge, but I don't know. I knew I had a really good car, but the thing is to get around them guys because they were really holding their ground and guarding the bottom. But I knew my car was a little faster than them because they saved something. Yeah,
I managed to stay there through all the cold, and I got to ask you about the last 10 laps, man. It was really exciting, and there were a lot of people in the stands pulling for you. I was sitting in front of your dad, and so you're trying. You and the 2-car, Tim Golo, are trying to run down Kurt Stebbins. All of a sudden, he starts backing up to you. Do you see him coming back to you?
Yeah, I could see that we were catching him. I knew I was faster than Kurt Stebbins there earlier because I'd caught him a couple times. I almost had him passed a couple times, and then the caution come out. And I happened to make a mistake down there in turn 3 and 4, and that's when Tim Golo got by me there.
Yep, I was just gonna ask you about that because when you guys went through 1 and 2, you had a good run on them. You maybe swapped a little bit of paint. It was nothing that was. I don't think you moved anybody. And then going into 3, it looked like he kind of ran you up the track a little bit, and it allowed Carpenter to get by. What's your thoughts then?
Well, I was on him pretty hard. I did touch him a couple times when I passed him, but I didn't try running him up the track or anything. I'm not trying to badmouth anybody.
Nope,
He's just running me hard, and I think we got together a little bit there, and I'm just fortunate enough he didn't cut one of my tires down or something. I'm happy.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I got that.
Oh, so Carpenter gets underneath you. There's, 5 laps to go. You really caught him in no time, and your car really stuck on the bottom when you went around him.
Yeah, it felt pretty good to pass him. He's one of the top guys I race against. He beats me everywhere else. So he's got a really good car and runs a real tight ship over there. Must be.
You cross the line and take the checkered flag. And Cory, I got to ask you, what did it mean? How big was that win for you?
Oh, it's definitely the biggest win of my young career so far. I don't know. It's kind of breathtaking. It makes it worth it. All the guys that help me and everybody that supports me. It gives them something back to reflect on.
Yeah. I know when I reached out to you on Sunday after the win to come out on our show, you seemed kind of surprised. And, I think that's really cool to have a guy like yourself go out and win a big race like that and to see just how much it means to you guys.
Yeah, it's a great feeling.
Well, that's great. We before we let you go tonight, we certainly thank you for your time. We want to give you an opportunity to thank all the people that help you get to the racetrack every week and certainly help you get to the Empire 100 win.
All right. Well, first of all, I'd like to thank my crew, Tommy Brodigan and Luke Boom. Without those guys here every week, I sure as heck wouldn't get the car to the racetrack. My mom and dad, Costa's Auto Body, Auto Value Parts Stores, Riverfront Collision, and of course Josh Sawyer and Sawyer's Mobile RV. They do a number for me up there.
Very good.
One more question for you before you go, Cory. Are you gonna take the 02 to 5 Mile Point this weekend?
Yes, sir. I will be there.
All right. I'll come over and make sure I say hi to you.
Okay.
All right, Cory. Well, certainly good luck at 5 Mile Point. We thank you for coming out on the Turn 5 podcast, and good luck to you this week.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right, guys, that's Cory Costa, winner of the Empire 100 this past Saturday over at Black Rock Speedway. Thank you, Cory, for your time, and when we come back to Turn 5, we're going to have the complete Empire 100 breakdown. Stick around, you're listening to the Turn 5 Racing Podcast. You're listening to the Turn 5 Racing Podcast, your home for news, results, discussion, and driver interviews. Creekside Entertainment is the official DJ and photo booth of the Turn 5 Racing Podcast. They have the most up-to-date karaoke to make your bar or party a great event. They also have the wedding DJs that will make your wedding reception one that the family will remember forever. Contact them online at www.creeksideentertainmentdj.com or call Stu at 315-481-9700.
You're listening to the Turn 5 Racing Podcast, now back with Steve Ovens and Clint Miller.
All right, Clint, we're back to Turn 5. Not a bad first interview.
No, that was pretty neat. Thank you, Cory, for coming on board.
Absolutely. Like I said to him in the interview, I think it's really cool how a guy like that, comes up and tells us on the air, that's the biggest win of my career. I mean, he's been racing
his young
a few
career.
Years now. Yeah, his young career, exactly. All right, Clint, well, let's go over real quick the breakdown of the Empire 100 and the events that took place on Saturday. We'll get into some results here. Let's start out with the makeup street stock feature. This was a race that was left over from Father's Day back. I believe this was originally started in June. They tried to run it on another date. That date got rained out. Tried to run it again. Got rained out again. So anyway, they start on lap 14 of a 50-lap race, and coming away with the win in the makeup street stock feature was Rich Green, who had a hellacious battle with Rich Marlotte.
Brett Marlott.
Brett Marlott, excuse me. They had contact in lap traffic in turns 1 and 2. Both of them went to the infield just coming out of turn 2. And then both of them come back up onto the racetrack, almost door-to-door, going down into turn 3. Rich Green was able to get by and go ahead and take the win. Marlott had to settle for second. Jeremy Petrobowski was third. Snake in the sand, Jake Karlnowski came home in fourth, and Cory Costa came home fifth. 6 through 10 were Daryl Krebs, Gene Balmer, Dave Matwijow.
That's
Matwijow. Granddad Bob Bono came home ninth, and Jim Thompson rounded out the top 10. Pretty entertaining race there in the makeup street stock feature. Really kind of set the tone for the rest of the day.
It really did. Yeah, they were battling and got into some lap traffic, and I believe the 3L Green got down into the mud on the bottom and nose washed out and made some contact, and the rest, they say, is history.
Yeah, I talked to Rich after the race, and that was, from sitting from the stands, it looked like he got in there and got his nose a little too far in, and then talked to him afterwards. He goes, it's real wet. There's a lot of mud down there. Drifted up, had a little contact.
I just happened to have been sitting in the right spot, and I saw the whole thing transpire, and that's what you get.
That is what you get. All right, now we'll switch over to the Empire 100, the main event for the day. They had 50 street stocks pack the pits, and let me tell you guys, the pits at Black Rock were packed. You couldn't fit any more cars in
trailer
that
to trailer.
Area. Trailer to trailer. Coming down with heat race wins for the 100 was Krebs, Matwijow, Kurt Stebbins, who had a nice run in the 100, took down a heat win, and John Carpenter, who won 27 A-main features this year with the 2 weekly tracks that he runs, pulled down championships at Penn and 5 Mile Point Speedway. Unbelievable.
He has had a career year, absolutely.
Absolutely. And then Steve Deinhardt took home another heat race win for the Empire 100. Consies were taken by Tracy Dunn and Chuck Winslow, and some smoke coming from the Winslow machine as he took that Consi win. He did make it back up for the feature. Then we get to the 100-lap Empire 100, and as we just spoke to the winner, Cory Costa pulled down the biggest win of his career, leading. When they threw the checkered at lap 100, John Carpenter, who we said has just had a career year this year, came home second. Jeremy Petrobowski came home third. Rich Green fourth, Kurt Stebbins fifth, and that had to hurt for Stebbins because he had a strong car there.
Yeah, I'm sure fifth place is no consolation. He actually led, I believe, the first 90 or 91 laps of the 100.
Yeah, 6 through 10 were Chris Fisher. Dylan Cece came home seventh, and I think Cece made about 10 pit stops during the 100.
He was in a bunch, that's for sure.
Tim Gulo, who led some laps on Saturday, came home 8th, Wayne Robertson 9th, and Steve Deinhardt rounded out your top 10 for the Empire 100. Great show. Took us a while to get there, but let me tell you, the track was great for the feature, and these guys really put on a nice show.
Yeah, so there was a few lanes to race on, and they not as wide as I've seen it before, but for the racing that they had, it was pretty smooth and real racy.
Next up, we had the Big Block Modified, Small Block Modified Challenge. They had 28 cars, pretty good field for those guys. Heat race wins went to Joe Deegan, Donnie Lawson, Dylan DeWert, and Alan Rudalovich, not to be confused with Jeff Rudalovich, who used to own the Alan Johnson Native Poker ride. The Consi, Ronnie White. Ronnie White took home the Consi. I love seeing that.
Driving the Playground Tavern.
The Playground Tavern number 5. That was awesome. 5W. That was great. Other guys notable drivers that were there to try and qualify for the show. AJ Slideways, Alan Johnson was there. Caitlin Kane came to try and make the field. And Terry Huff in the 1H.
It's been a while since you heard that name in that area.
It's been a long time, and it's been a while since that car has been out there. I mean,
Jason Knowles has actually driven that car at Woodhall 2 or 3 times this year, just out playing around, trying to have a good time.
Yeah, it was great to see him out there. And in their feature event, last lap pass, coming from the back, Bob Henry came from shotgun on the field to pass Ron Cartwright on the last lap to take the win. Henry pulled down the win. Cartwright was second. Rudalovich third. Donnie Lawson came home fourth. And the 1, 2, 3, Dale Welty rounded out your top 5.
Driving the 9X, Kennison's car.
Oh, that's right. The 1, 2, 3 was his sportsman ride.
That's right.
You're absolutely right. 6 through 10 were Chris Ostrowski, Brady Foltz, who had a strong run, and then I think he got caught up in a jingle there toward the end.
He had to pit. He had a flat left front tire.
That's right.
He's bouncing it off the turtles.
And let me tell you, he was doing all of that. He was getting a lot of airtime in that Troyer Race Cars 70. The rest of the top 10 were Rich Newton, Scott Boudinot, and Brian Worthing. Next up was the Go Nuclear late models, their 30-lap feature. They had 26 cars. Nice stout field for the late models. Heat wins were taken by Bryce Davis, Scott Waters, and Jeremy Wunderling, Mr. Excitement. And this looked like, for the first 24 laps of the 30-lap feature, it looked like the Mr. Excitement Invitational.
It was sickening. I mean, he drove away from everybody. He was definitely the class of the field.
By far. I mean, he was...
There was nobody in the same zip code.
I've seen Jeremy run that track a lot, and I think that was the fastest I've seen Jeremy on that track in my life. I mean, they were lapping up and almost to the top 5. I mean, they were just gone. Coming off of turn 2 on lap 24, Jeremy spun the car, had a left rear flat. It was hard to tell whether the left rear flat was before or after the spin, but he did like 2 360s there in turn 2. It was putting on quite a show when he spun out there. Bryce Davis took the lead after that, and he looked like he had the race won. Last couple of laps, something happened to the 94, starts slowing down.
Yeah, I think Jason Knowles actually passed him.
Yep.
With a lap or 2 laps to go.
Jason Knowles took the lead coming down to the white flag, and then they get on the backstretch, and all of a sudden the Knowles machine is slowing down. And he slows down off of turn 4, can't make it to the finish line. And then Mr. IMCA, now Mr. Late Model, Dale Caswell, comes ripping off of turn 4. And he only led the front stretch of the race.
That's all you need.
But that's all he needed. He took the checkered flag.
And I think that he had a right rear shock or something gone.
Yes, he did.
Because it was leaning on the right rear the whole race.
Yep, he certainly did. So Dale Caswell pulled down the big win there. Charlie Sandercook was second. Brandon Ford was third. Shane Tenace was fourth. And Brian Knowles fifth. 6 through 10, tough break for Bryce Davis. Comes home sixth in the race that he probably thought he had won. Jason Knowles came home seventh. Same situation. Probably thought he had the race won. Brad Messler was eighth. Jared Hill, who probably passed more cars than anybody else on that track other than Wunderling lapping machines.
Right.
Jared had that car hooked up on the outside. He come off of turn 2 one time, and I said, they better watch out in turn 3 because Jared's going to blow the house down going into 3.
That's a BRP car. They allowed the BRP guys to change tires and run a taller spoiler, and that car was absolutely on a rail. And actually, the left rear shock was broke on it, so the left rear of the car wasn't even working.
That was amazing that he was able to do that. And Jason McGregor rounded out your top 10 in the Go Nuclear Late Model Series. Next up, Crate Sportsman. 36 Crate Sportsman guys showed up for this event. That was a great field for them. Heat races were taken by Bob Bono. Big Daddy Brett Bono had a heat race win. They would start on the front row for the feature event for the Crate Sportsmans. Ben Wheeler and Ray Bliss also took home heat race events. The Consies were taken by James Henry and Brady Foltz, who was in a Bono backup car. I believe it was the 64F for Brady. He got in through the Consi. And then when it was all said and done, Ray Bliss took home the win in the Crate Sportsman division. Donnie Lawson came home second. Casey Pavlik was third. Brett Bono was fourth. Rob Humphreys rounded out your top 5. Those guys put on a pretty good battle at the front as well.
It was a great race.
All those guys in the top 5. 6 through 10 were Ronnie Davis, James Henry, Brandon Ford, Brady Foltz in the Bono ride, and Lauren Lincoln brought the Lincoln Fabrication number 2 home with the top 10. Then we had the IMCA Empire Series. They had 22 cars, and that's a great field for the IMCA guys. I know it's a series race, but that's still a great field for those guys. It was good to see all those cars in the pit area. Heats were taken by Dick in the Dirt, Rich Karlnoski, Mike Wilmot, and Matt Jones. And in their feature event, again, another last lap pass to take the win for the IMCAs.
On the outside.
On the outside, no less, exactly. Mike Wilmot took home the win over Chris Fleming. Chris led the whole thing and got passed going into turn 3. Gary Roberts was third. Scott Sebring, what a run
Great
for Scotty coming home
Absolutely.
fourth. That was great. Matt Jones routed out your top 5. 6 through 10 were Todd Stone, Dan Berman, Tyler Stoddard, Tony Harris, and Jared Spalding. And in the front-wheel drive, rear-wheel drive, 4-cylinder challenge, they had 19 cars for that event. Heat races were taken by Rick Horton and our good buddy down on Lower Westlake Road, Craig Mart.
Owner of Mart's Garage.
Mart's Garage, that's right. He took home a heat race win. And in their feature event, it was Rick Horton taking the win over Trevor Dudley, Jeremy Trank, who will be joining us next week on Turn 5 to talk about his championship run in 2013. Brian Grant was 4th, and 5th was Craig Mart. 6 through 10 were Cody Baker, Chad Ayers, Adam Del Grosso, Joe Cron, and Bill Werner.
Now, I heard, I didn't see it because we were busy working on race cars, but I heard that was a photo finish.
Yeah, the front-wheel drive 4-cylinder challenge, they said that Horton led, at the line, officially led all the laps, but he would lose the lead in 1 and 2. He'd lose the lead in the backstretch, and he was always able to come back and lead the race at the line.
Oh, wow.
To count the laps. That was according to the press release. So, great race between those guys. And I had a chance to talk to Craig Mart that we spoke about before the night started, and really an affordable class. I mean, if you're looking to get into racing, to see if it's something that you want to do, and you're not quite thinking that you want to commit to a full-blown 4-cylinder car, the front-wheel drive class is the way to go. And they run them all over the country. So
Yeah, they had 2 weeks ago down to 5 Mile Point, they had like 34 or 35 of them.
yeah, it's a popular class. They run them here at Black Rock, down at Woodhall, all over the place. So it's popular for sure. Those are the results from Black Rock Speedway from the Empire 100. And we're going to throw it out to a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to be on the hotline with Phil Yaw, your 2013 IMCA Modified Champion at Black Rock Speedway. You're listening to Turn 5. You're listening to the Turn 5 Racing Podcast, your home for news, results, discussion, and driver interviews. And we're back with the Turn 5 Racing Podcast. I'm Steve Ovens with Clint Miller, getting ready to do our second interview of the night. We're going to go over to the Turn 5 hotline and bring in the driver of the number 98 IMCA Modified at Black Rock Speedway, newly crowned 2013 IMCA Modified Champion at Black Rock Speedway, Phil Yaw. Phil, congratulations on the championship. I know that's got to feel good for you.
Yeah, it does. First time you win any championship, it's always good. And when you're doing it at a level like this, you can't complain.
Now, is that your first points championship at Black Rock or any other track?
That was my first points championship on anything.
Wow. Now, that's impressive because, even from back in the days when I was racing with Phil, Phil was a strong guy, week in and week out. Didn't matter what he was running. And so that's awesome, man. Congratulations.
Thanks. Yeah, I remember the night I kind of let you win that night. Your first night.
Yeah. Well, that was as I was saying that, I immediately went to that night. You and I had a great battle there the last 5-10 laps of that race, and that'll be a night that I certainly won't forget. But back to the IMCA, and how'd you even get into the IMCA?
Well, last year I ran a 4-cylinder. We had the death of my daughter there towards the end of the season, and I decided then I was going to get out of racing, that I needed to spend more time with the family and this and that, and so we tried the go-kart thing a little bit, and my son wasn't really too impressed with that, so I said, well, let's go back into racing. So I was talking with Sparky Hills, and he had an old Earl Harp super stock laying around that I wanted to convert over to a street stock. Well, I almost get that built, and the announcement that the IMCA were coming to Black Rock, and I put something on Race New York about possibly trading. Didn't think anybody was going to really do it for an IMCA, and somebody did call, and so we went up to Lockport in the middle of winter, snow blowing all over the place, and guy was interested in trading, and we started with that. That was a 3-link car, late 90s chassis. We did pretty good with that. Then I was talking with some other guy about a year later, and he had one of Tom Lyons' old chassis laying around, roller, and I knew that was an improvement from what I had, and didn't think you'd want to sell, so he sold that to me. And then we went down to Charlotte last year and got real lucky and won a chassis down there.
Yeah, you were telling me earlier today that you won that car. Was it in a raffle?
Yeah, just a drawing they had down there. It's called the Grits Show. I didn't know anything about it or anything when we went down. The guy that you and I used to race against, his son came up to me. It's Del Cummings' son, George, and his wife, Serena.
Yep.
Were talking to me on my way down to Charlotte. And they're like, hey, Phil, you going to the Grits Show? And I'm like, I'm not into the grits. And they're like, no, this is a car show. And I'm like, oh, okay. All right. So I said, all right, yeah, we'll check it out. And they're like, well, they're giving away a chassis in the thing. Okay, all right, yeah, we'll check it out. And when I Googled it or whatever, they said it was the biggest show in the South for a car show. So we all know what Park Peddler looks like, and I was picturing 10 times bigger than that. And when we got there, it was about 1/10 the size of the Park Peddler. But
wow,
it was just vendors there, and that was it. No parts available to buy or anything. But it was the first time they had it there. I would say there's probably maybe a dozen vendors there, or no more than 2 dozen easily. But they were giving away the chassis, and I was writing on Facebook to the wife that I was coming home with a car, and she's like, well, no, the only way you're coming home with a car is if you win it. Okay.
Mission accomplished.
Yeah. A couple days later, I get a call back from Nick Hoffman, and I was at the World Finals for that. He's calling me. I'm trying to hear him and stuff, and he says, well, I'm Nick Hoffman, and you won the chassis. And we're all thinking, yeah, right, okay, whatever. And he says, no, I'm on my way down to the track. We'll meet there. Well, my father and I go down there, and 2 of my cousins were down there with us, and nobody could believe that this was really happening, And it's, okay, yeah, whatever, Phil, And about an hour later, he shows up, and everybody's in disbelief. And that was, that was November 3rd that I won it last year. And the rest is,
No.
It was a great year.
Now, you didn't actually have the chassis in your hands until February or March, right?
I didn't have the chassis in my hands until April 3rd, and the first race was May 3rd. So within 1 month, I built a car within 1 month, and hardly anything was interchangeable with the old chassis. When Nick Hoffman decided to do this elite chassis deal, he waited till it was like 2 or 3 weeks before Eldora for the Gator National.
Okay.
And 15 days before the Gator Nationals, the pipe shows up, and he says he's going to build a chassis. Well, he goes out 15 days later to Eldora, and he wins that, the biggest race out there. And he backs it up with the UMP Nationals at the end of the year with the same chassis. It's Elton Brothers chassis. Elton Brothers Race Cars does the chassis work for him. It's relative to Bobby and Donnie Ellison.
They've won a race or two.
Yeah, just a few. They put their heads together and come up with this chassis, and just this year they had 10 cars they built and 37 wins and 2 track championships.
Yeah, remember Elite Chassis. They're in IMCA and the EMOD series and the UMP. Elite Chassis is going to be the way to go for quite a while.
Yeah. And it certainly helped you at BlackRock this year, that's for sure.
When you consider I really don't know a lot about setup, if I had somebody that knew exactly what to do with these cars, I'm sure the car is stronger than what it's showing now, but the little motor that could, it needs to be a little bit bigger. We're trying to go to Boone next year for the Nationals out there, but a 350H just not going to cut it out there. We're looking at probably a 383 or a 400, but that's still up in the air and how I'm going to get that.
Sparky will build you a good one.
Yeah, Sparky Hills, he can build a motor. Let me tell you, for what that motor is and racing against, you can't ask anything more out of the guy.
Wow, now that's something I didn't know. I didn't know that about Spark, but the engine package for these IMCA modifieds, is that kind of like a crate deal, or is that an open motor, or how's that work?
It is an open motor, but there's a very low claimer on it.
Okay.
It's only like $1,050 to claim somebody's motor. So it's preventing the $10,000 motors.
Yeah. And it makes it so you can take that car anywhere.
I can take this car down to Florida, or I can take it to out west.
Yeah.
And it's legal. That's the biggest seller with IMCA is the rules are the same no matter where you go in the country.
Yeah, and it's too bad that BlackRock's only got 10 or 11 cars, because it really is the same rule pattern from New York to California, and you can take them anywhere.
Yeah. I mean, not that there's a huge difference, but I don't even do any changes between BlackRock and Skyline. I am under horsepower at Skyline. With a tighter track, you need a little more motor than what I've got, so it does break up a little bit. But with this chassis, there is hardly any adjustments needed throughout the week, no matter what track you're at. Maybe some air pressure changes, and that's it.
That's great. And to switch gears here and talk about your year at BlackRock, you pulled down a couple wins, got a bunch of heat race wins. And it's probably something that a lot of people don't know about BlackRock is you get points in your heat races.
No, we don't get points for heat races.
Oh, did they change that? Okay.
Yeah. IMCA, all the other classes give points. Well, that I know of.
Okay.
IMCA does not, which is probably the only downfall that I can see with IMCA. As long as you're in a qualifying spot, you're going to start in the same spot. For the feature.
Okay, well, I learned something new there.
Yeah, whether you finish first or the last qualifier, the way I understand it, you're gonna start the feature in the same spot.
Okay.
It could be a lot better, I think, if there was 4 or 5 points on the line. Basically, if you're in a qualifying spot with no competition around you, you're not really pushing the car too much to improve your position because you're already qualified.
Right.
But other than that, IMCA, I preach it. It is the class to be in.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's a lot of upside to that. So yeah. Absolutely. Now, with your points run this year, you beat Rich by 1 point there at the end. I mean, that had to create a little bit of nerves knowing that you're going after your first championship and things were real tight right to the last race.
Yeah.
Last lap.
Dale Weldy told me this year that you got to lose one to win one. And last year I lost it by about 5 points to Mike Smith.
Oh, man.
And I knew that I couldn't let that happen again. And Rich ran me clean all year. Great guy. What can you say about him? He's got a lot of wins this year. We went into the last race tied for feature wins. So, and he had me with a second place finish if it came down to a tie. So he would have won the championship if there wasn't a car separating us on that last race.
Wow.
But yeah, 3 wins at Black Rock, and then we went over to Skyline a couple weeks after the season was over, and while everybody was out to Boone. And
well, Phil, that's certainly it's been a great season for you. I know you got a good crew behind you. You can't win a championship without one, and some great sponsors backing you up.
Got to thank, of course, the Elite Chassis, Nick Hoffman, and the guy that does run another Elite Chassis helps him to set up, Robbie Evans, Allison Brothers Race Cars, Choice Auto Glass, J&J Motorsports, Cabins Castles, Maria's Taverns, Bleachers Bar and Grill, PRF Refurb, Ladybug Foundation, Sparky's Engines, John Latumsky Insurance, Carquest of Watkins, my wife Amy, and 2 kids, Colton and Nick, and Holly.
Yep, can't forget the little ladybug.
Yeah. She definitely looked over me a lot lately. And everybody's been helping me with everything.
Well, that's good stuff, man. I certainly congratulate you on your first ever championship. I know what that feels like, and that's something that they're never going to be able to take away from you.
No, that's one thing for sure.
All right, what's real quick? What's the plan for next year? Back to Black Rock, or are we still searching out some other ideas?
I'm gonna go back to Black Rock for sure. I was throwing around the idea of possibly doing a crate Sportsman next year, but I've had too many people tell me one more year in the IMCA, and I haven't quite found the right deal with the Sportsman either. So the money's just not there for me right now. But if the right deal does come across, you never know, but it'll be at Black Rock regardless.
All right, Phil. Well, if anything changes, you be sure to let us know, and we'll get you back on here and tell everybody about it, and we'll see you at the banquet.
All right, sounds good, Steve.
All right, guys, that's Phil Yaw, driver of the 98. He's your 2013 IMCA champion, and one way or another, we're going to see him at Black Rock next year. Stick around with us. We've got our sponsor representatives coming up. You're listening to Turn 5. Race Chaser Online is your nationwide hub for short track racing news, video, and audio. Visit them at www.racechaseronline.com and catch them on Tuesdays and Thursdays on Speed 77 Radio on Livestream. Penn Electronics is your Radio Shack dealer in Penn. They have everything to keep your phone, computer, and home theater system sounding sharp. Visit them on Main Street in beautiful downtown Penn, or call them at 315-536-7700 and see our favorite salesman, Clint Miller. Okay, welcome back to Turn 5. We are into our sponsor representative segments here, and the first one we're going to bring on tonight is a guy that I go quite a ways back with, all the way back to the Frozen Ocean Speedway. Tom Baker is the founder and editor-in-chief of Race Chaser Online, and he joins us on the Turn 5 hotline right now. Tom, thanks for joining us tonight.
Hey, thanks for having me, Stephen, and really excited about your new show, and I think it's great that we're going to have an opportunity to get some great race talk up in my home state, my former home state, the Empire State, and really excited to be on.
Yeah, and this is really taking a chapter out of the novel that is Tom Baker's life. You had quite a successful show up here in the Northeast for a long time.
We did. Inside Groove was a lot of fun. Star 105.5 in Oswego when that was still going, or WSGO as some of the older folks know it. We did a show on there for a number of years before it shut down, and then we kind of became a bit of a bunch of ramblers and moved it around to different stations up there wherever they would. But yeah, we were fortunate because back in the early 90s we put the show on the air, and Stephen, it was really a cool time because not only were we able to bring the talk show, but we also were able to carry or put on a number of live racing radio events. Paul Small really helped us a bunch with that, and we were able to we were the first ones to do the Super Dirt Week races live on broadcast radio, and those days were fun. They were the salad days, so to speak, and we learned quite a lot and built a website in the early 2000s, and wish I had known where the internet was going at that time, because I would have obviously still had that site, but some other things in life came up, and we went and did some other things and closed the site down, and then here we are down south now, and Race Chaser Online was born this year thanks to Humpy Wheeler and his ideas and his help, and man, it's just been it's kind of fun how the circle's kind of closing, and we're going back in time a little bit, and it's been great to have you and Brad and and some of the other folks that we used to work with involved in one way or another with it. And of course, we have a whole new staff of writers that are young and really doing some fantastic work for us. So it's been a fun ride. But yeah, those were great days, man. The Frozen Ocean days and the radio days up there was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, back in the Frozen Ocean days, I remember going to the banquet at the Auburn Holiday Inn and telling Tom Baker during the banquet, yeah, man, and of course I was like, 10 years old at the time, maybe, Dad, saying to Tom, hey, Tom, there's a big party in my room tonight. And I gave him the room number, and wouldn't you know, Tom showed up. There was no party because I was 10 years old, but Tom showed up, and that was just the kind of guy Tom was, and we've had a lot of fun over the years. But, we're really excited.
The funniest part, I'm sorry, Steve, I was going to say the funniest part of that is when you posted a picture from that on my Facebook wall a while back, and I had no idea where we were in that picture. It's like, those were great memories for sure, a lot of fun.
Yep. Well, we're really excited to have you on board with the Turn 5 podcast, and it's just one of those deals where one hand really washes the other, and we're excited to be a part of the greater umbrella that is Race Chaser, and you guys really have been picking up steam over the summer. You guys just launched a Memorial Day weekend or right around that area, and you guys have really been picking up steam.
We really have, Stephen, and it's really been quite an adventure, honestly. The whole thing really kind of started last year when I was approached and asked by some folks down here in Charlotte to bring my radio show back, which I had kind of put on hiatus a little bit just because I was concentrating on some other things in the motorsports business, and so I brought it back. We had it on our ESPN affiliate for a while, and then they went from a talk show format station to a live sports format station kind of all at once at the end of the summer. Within a 10-day period, they signed contracts with 3 different local sports teams down here to carry their games. And so they basically took away all of the midweek live talk show kind of shows in favor of the live games. And so I was a little frustrated because I had been, about 20 years in radio, 25 years almost, I think, actually, and just was a little frustrated with the fact that a lot of these AM stations or, broadcast stations in general, they just don't understand racing, and they don't understand how loyal motorsports sponsors are and that sort of thing, and they just really don't know what to do with motorsports programming. And so I was determined to do something different with the show, and I had a chance to sit with Humpy Wheeler in January of this year, and I kind of ran by him some ideas that I had for what I wanted to do with the radio show, and in all of Humpy's infinite knowledge and wisdom, he asked me why I wanted to do what I was wanting to do, and I told him that, you know, my greater purpose was to bring some sort of a centralized base to short track media coverage. There's, you know, little sites and little podcast shows all over the place that all sort of cover their own little niche, but there's no place on the web where, or on the radio, where one can go and basically hear about all kinds of short track racing in one central spot. So I sort of had this vision of you know, the show multiplying itself into a daily show with different regions being covered and all of that sort of thing. And so he looked at me and said, well, you know, I have a better idea, and if you'll do it the way that I tell you to do it, I know it'll work, and I'll help you all I can. And you know, and at that point, when Humpy Wheeler speaks, you just basically sit quietly and focus. That's really what you do. You know, you just listen and take notes. And he said, you need to build a website. And so that really was the genesis of Race Chaser, was, you know, Humpy Wheeler's conversation with me back in January, and I went ahead and started work on the site, and we you're right, we flipped the switch Memorial Day week, and it was a great week to flip the switch to the public. I had already been loading content for about a month, and it was just, you know, it was a great opportunity, and, you know, man, it just kind of took off from there. And you're right, we've picked up steam over the summer. We've got about half a dozen writers now, and just covering all kinds of racing. It's been a ton of fun, and there's some great content on it. And I'm so proud of you guys that are contributing, because, you know, none of you have a great deal of experience, but the quality of the work is just fantastic, and it really makes for a site that we all can be proud of. Absolutely.
And I know it's something that I'm proud to be submitting some work from, and I'll just tell you, Jacob and Joel Sebastianelli and Jacob Seelman, I read some of their stuff, and I take notes myself. I'm like, man, this is great. It's great to be working with that kind of group.
Well, and it's unique too, because, I mean, Jacob just put up today, he worked for 2 weeks on a comprehensive story covering the iRacing NASCAR League season, and that story posted today, and he's got about 5 or 6 audio interviews, extended length audio interviews. I had no idea how massive and how big in scope this league is. But I mean, you know, there are teams in this league that, you know, have sponsors that give them several $1,000s to compete on the internet in this league, and that was something that we covered, I think, more comprehensively than anybody else in the country. So it was an amazing story, and Jacob did some great work on it. And of course, he and I do a couple of podcast shows down here. We're about to add a third and a fourth for 2014, and now, of course, we've got the ASCS Carolina Sprint Series that we've got under our umbrella this coming year as well, that we're starting to put together, 305 Dirt Sprint Series here in the Carolinas. So, you know, we are growing quite a bit, and you know, real proud of Jacob and Joel's Indian Formula One knowledge is just beyond anybody else that I know, to be honest, and the way he articulates it every week on the air with us on Tuesday nights is just great. And so it's always fun to see sort of another baby, if you will, being born out of mothership, and Turn 5 is going to be very successful. Stephen, you just knocked Super Dirt Week coverage completely out of the park for us, and I'm still getting positive feedback on the work that you did up there, and obviously looking forward to more and more. And it'll be fun when we can get to a point where we start tying all the podcast shows together. That's what I wanted, was a site not just with written content but audio, and then we're going to start as we go into 14. We'll start doing more with video content as well. But certainly the audio content is something that we pride ourselves on, and it allows us to be able to develop shows that do focus on just little parts of the sport. And your show is a good example, focusing on the dirt track racing, mostly in New York there. It allows us to cover a part of the sport much more comprehensively than we could just through written articles, and actually hear from some of the personalities and such. So
absolutely, I
want the fans to be able to come to the Race Chaser and have a great experience, and a lot of interesting things to look at, and a lot of interesting people to hear from.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's the goal, and that's what we look forward to being able to do. The website there is www.racechaseronline.com. That's www.racechaseronline.com. And how can the folks get a hold of you, Tom, if they have any more interest in Race Chaser?
Well, the easiest way is either get a hold of us through our Facebook page is probably the easiest way to do it, or send us a tweet. We're on Facebook at Race Chaser Online and Twitter at Race Chaser News. You can get a hold of us through either of those venues. Send us a message there, or if you wanted to email us, it's news@racechaseronline.com. And if there are any track PR people or series PR people that are listening, we would love to run your press releases on Race Chaser. We're developing several specialty pages. We've got pages for each region of the country as well. So, we'd love to put your stuff up. So news at Race Chaser Online would be the way to do that. I'm sorry, news at racechaseronline.com would be the way to do that. And, we'd love to have the content. So, definitely appreciate the opportunity to be on the show with you, Stephen and Brad and Clint. I know that you're kind of just getting off the ground up there, but looking forward to doing all we can to help you build it and help you to promote it, and just really, I'll tell you, the podcasts are a little different than a broadcast show, and we talked about this off air a little bit. Stick with it, and those of you who are listening, make sure you share this and really, really work with everybody, in your online friend groups and get them to listen, because we need to build the audience for these guys. It's going to be a great show, and it's going to be a real asset to the motorsport scene up there. So definitely proud of what you guys are trying to do, and I know you're going to do it well.
Well, we appreciate that very much, Tom. We appreciate your time tonight coming on the show, and we look forward to a very happy and healthy relationship together with Race Chaser Online.
Well, thanks a lot, guys. Hope you have a great rest of the show, and thanks for the opportunity to come on and talk, and hello to all of my friends up in New York State. All
right. Guys, that's Tom Baker from RaceChaserOnline.com. He is one of our show sponsors with us here on the Turn 5 podcast. And when we come back, we're going to hear from Clint Miller, who's going to talk to us about Penn Electronics. You're listening to Turn 5. You're listening to the Turn 5 Racing Podcast, your home for news, results, discussion, and driver interviews. Penn Electronics is your Radio Shack dealer in Penn. They have everything to keep your phone, computer, and home theater system sounding sharp. Visit them on Main Street in beautiful downtown Penn, or call them at 315-536-7700 and see our favorite salesman, Clint Miller. Welcome back to the Turn 5 podcast. This is your host, Steve Ovens, and now we're going to turn our attention over to our sponsors. We just heard from Tom Baker from Race Chaser Online. Now we're going to hear from our friends at Penn Electronics. And Clint, you're going to fill in here and talk about your workplace.
Talk about my workplace.
Yeah.
Well, we're getting towards Christmas season, and this is really a busy time for us, and we like being downtown, being pretty much the face of Main Street since we put our new store down there, and we got the new sign, the beautiful storefront. For Christmas time, we're going to be pushing a lot of. We're going to have new Apple iPods, the Kindles. We're going to do a lot of TVs. Got a great wall of headphones. And you come down to us and you get some good customer service too. Absolutely,
and you talked about being down on Main Street there in Penn. I mean, that is one of the coolest business districts that you'll find around the Finger Lakes.
It certainly is. And, when you sit back and think about, maybe 3 years ago, how empty Main Street was, lots of empty storefronts. Jim, the owner, my boss, the last couple of years, he's been wanting to get downtown. We just wanted to be a part of a change. And I think, I think there might be only one storefront now that's not filled up. And Main Street looks great.
Yeah, it certainly does. And, down in Penn, you got Cuca Lake. You've got, it's a popular spot in the summer for sure. And then there's guys like us that are hanging around year round. So it's cool to have you guys down in the business district. And we're really excited to have Penn Electronics on board with us. Local Radio Shack dealer. No other Radio Shack dealer in town. So you guys are it when it comes to Penn.
Yeah, we are it, and we've heard a lot of feedback on, people really like us being here, and we like being here, and we like serving the public, and that's what we're here to do.
All right. Any how can they contact you? You're down on Main Street, right by the Four Corners. I think there's only one storefront before you guys.
Yep, we're right next to Going Postal, just down the street from Long's. Our phone number is 315-536-7700. Our address is 103 Main Street. If you still think we're in the plaza, just punch it in your GPS or just give us a call. We'll give you directions to get there.
Absolutely. And that's Penn Electronics, the Radio Shack dealer here in Penn, and they are a proud partner of the Turn 5 podcast. Anytime we need a little assistance with something that we're not clear about, or when we got some equipment to get started up here, there was only one place that we were going to go to for sure. Otherwise, Clint be dragging us out by the collar of our shirts. But thank you for coming on and talk to us about that, Clint, tonight, and we certainly look forward to working with you guys in the future.
All right, Stephen, we look forward to it, and we look forward to letting this podcast grow.
All right. That's Penn Electronics, the official electronics. What will we say? Provider / partner of the Turn 5 podcast. You're listening to Turn 5. When we come back, we're going to get the old man on the microphone. We got Stu Ovens from Creekside Entertainment here. We'll be right back. Creekside Entertainment is the official DJ and photo booth of the Turn 5 Racing Podcast. They have the most up-to-date karaoke to make your bar or party a great event. They also have the wedding DJs that will make your wedding reception one that the family will remember forever. Contact them online at www.creeksideentertainmentdj.com or call Stu at 315-481-9700. You're listening to the Turn 5 Racing Podcast, your home for news, results, discussion, and driver interviews. All right, welcome back to Turn 5. This is Steve Ovens, and we're going to turn the microphone now over to our next sponsor representative and a proud partner of the Turn 5 podcast. We've got Stu Ovens coming in to talk about the official DJ and photo booth of the Turn 5 podcast, and that's from Creekside Entertainment. Thanks for joining us tonight, Stu.
Thank you, Stephen. I'm very, very proud to be here, watch this whole production go together, and we're proud to be a sponsor of this, just as always we are. We come from a racing background, and we love to be inside some of the racing and still be able to contribute where we can and when we can.
Absolutely, and you talk about the long history of racing, and of course, for anybody listening that doesn't know, this is my dad, Stu, and we were talking about that long history of racing, and while we were out at Super Dirt Week, we had a chance to go out and check out the Dirt Car Hall of Fame out there in Weedsport, and I know that was something that brought back a lot of memories for you.
Yes, it was. There was cars that were there on the wall. There was cars that were displayed in the museum. Different colors when they ran, but I could remember some of the cars. I could remember a whole lot of the pictures. And a lot of the time when I looked at the date on the bottom of the picture, I was really, really seriously not thinking about saying that I could remember seeing that car race.
Yeah, that was a fun trip for sure. And I certainly, I know we all would recommend anybody that hasn't been out to the Hall of Fame there in Weedsport to go and check that out. A lot of history there, and for anybody that's been a race fan for a long time, it's definitely a site that you got to hit. So let's talk about Creekside Entertainment. Started back in 2008, and started out a little different than how we operate now. But you can give us a little history of the company.
Well, when the boys went off to college and we quit racing, I kind of got a little on the board side, and I had to find something to do, and a couple of my friends took me to a karaoke show down to O'Leary's for 3 times, and I got really interested in the whole production. I used to play in a band back in the late 70s, early 80s, and finally I got tired because I knew some of the sound where you went and did some of these shows could be better. I had made it better with the band, and I just decided to buy my own toys. And I can remember Steven's look on his face when I told him what I was going to do, and he says, "Yeah, right, okay."
Yeah.
And it was about a year and a half later it started to grow and started to make big wheels. When I first got started, I told everybody that it was a hobby, and I could tell 2 months into it that it was going to turn from a hobby into something that I could really make something out of, and I've had a great time doing it. And to watch this thing build and grow, I've sweat and been very, very nervous at times. But with the help of my son and everybody else working for us, we've put together quite an organization called Creekside Entertainment.
Absolutely. And, the thing about a company like that is it's not, when you're trying to grow a company like that, it's somebody might think, well, in order to make something successful, you got to dump a ton of money into it. And I mean, in some cases, yeah, there's equipment you have to buy and all that stuff. But I think the thing that's cool about Creekside Entertainment is how it's grown. It's grown slowly, but it's grown because they have a good reputation.
Yes. 3 years ago, we probably did, I'm going to say roughly about 45, maybe 50 shows total in the whole year. This year, we're going to be pushing almost 300 shows. We've done well over 40 weddings and getting quite acquainted to the people. My 2014 weddings are already rolling in, and I seen number 13 come through the phone tonight, and we've also got one booked for 2015 already, with another one looking for 2015. So it's been a real joy to watch everything grow, and we did it little by little, and we've really worked hard at what we've done and tried to grow the best reputation for a company that we possibly could.
Great reputation, prices consistent with anybody else, if not better than folks you'll go out and see. And in 2012, added a pretty big addition to the company in the Creekside photo booth.
Yes, the photo booth was something I fielded calls for a whole year, and it was people that were having a wedding, and the first question out of their mouth was, "Do you own a photo booth?" And I said, "No, I'm a DJ company." And pretty soon I got looking around, and there was some DJ companies that had photo booths. And finally, I finally told Steven, I said, we got to do something about this answer that I have to keep giving these people. And finally, I got him on board, and we bought the photo booth, and that thing has growed wheels ever since the day it was delivered on my front doorstep. It gets bigger and bigger every day. More people calling about it all the time.
Yeah, and the thing about the photo booth is not all photo booths are made the same. When you say to somebody, well, yeah, our company has a photo booth too, and they're like, oh, I've been to a wedding where they had a photo booth, and the thing that I try and point out to people is, our photo booth's a little bit different. It's more of that tent style where you can fit a lot of people into it. You're not limited to 2 people sitting down on the bench. And
about 70% of them is what I call a telephone booth. 2 people go in, you sit down, you put your hats and stuff on, but it fits 2 people. That's what we call a telephone booth. Ours is a full-size tent. You can get 6, 7 people in there comfortably. You can get 8, 9, 10 people in there as long as everybody loves everybody.
I was going to say the first photo booth show we ever did, we had 12 firemen in it.
Yes, they did. They had 12 firemen in there. Everybody's face was in the picture, and the tent was still standing when they got done. And I want to tell you what, they was right out there on the end of their liquor line, but they were very, very good, and it was fun to listen to them inside the booth.
Absolutely. Where can folks find you, Creekside Entertainment?
Creekside Entertainment has a very fine website at www.creeksidedj.com. We all
Entertainment DJ.
Excuse me. See that? I got my webmaster right here beside me. It's www.creeksideentertainmentdj.com. You can find everything you want to know about us there. We have our Facebook page. You can go to my personal page and find a lot about Creekside. We have a actual Creekside face page there. And we've had our website going long enough where it has grown its own engines. You can Google in DJ for Penn or the Finger Lakes area or photo booth, and you can take us and just Google in what you want, and Creekside Entertainment will come up.
Yep, we got the website there. You've got the Facebook page, which is Creekside Entertainment. You can also follow us on Twitter, which is at Creekside ENTDJ. That's ENTDJ, all in caps. You can follow us on Twitter. And on the Facebook page, you can see where we're going to be playing, who's going to be there. We've even dabbled in some video commercials here. And so all of what you need to find, you can find on Creekside Entertainment on the Facebook page and on the website. And also, Creekside Entertainment is our host website for the Turn 5 Racing Podcast. So if you go to creeksideentertainmentdj.com, and over on the right-hand side of the page, all the way down to the bottom, you've got Turn 5 Racing Podcast. You can find all of the episodes via YouTube on the Creekside Entertainment website. And Stu, we certainly thank you for your company's support in getting us out on the web and on the website. And it really has helped grow the show and turn it into what it is right now.
Nothing more than thank you for the extra advertisement that you get us, and very, very excited to see how successful this podcast come. I know I come from a background of local dirt racers at Dundee and Canandaigua and Weedsport, and I can remember back and will relate most often to a show that used to be on WFLR, was called Chasing Racing. And Al Bishop and Jack Christensen and Doug Madison. I can remember when I was racing street stock at Black Rock. When I first met them guys, they asked me to come up and do a show at WFLR for them. That was probably one of my biggest moments of racing right there, is when I got to go in and do that show for them, and we pulled down 3 Czech championships in that same year. So racing's been a lot of fun. I know we'd all like to go back and do it someday, but I think I've found my home for a while. Yeah, and I think we're building a new home here too at Turn 5. So
it's exciting to have you guys on board. And you talked about chasing racing. I think that's one thing that Clint and I keep coming back to is, back in the day, as we call it, which I still feel weird saying back in the day because I don't think at 27 I should be saying back in the day. But back in the day, listening to Chasing Racing, there was only one place that you could find any of us on a Tuesday night, and that was sitting by the radio listening to at that point, Jack and Doug on the radio show, and that was a big inspiration for Turn 5. And we certainly missed those guys a lot. Had a lot of good times riding to Black Rock with Dougie and his family living near real close by to where we were. So thank you guys for coming on board. And again, that's www.creeksideentertainmentdj.com. There you can find anything you need. DJ, photo booth, sound system rentals. We have the most up-to-date karaoke in the Finger Lakes. And thanks a lot, Stu, for coming out tonight.
Thank you for having me in.
All right, that's Creekside Entertainment. And we're going to take our last break of the show, and we'll come back to wrap things up. You're listening to Turn 5. Race Chaser Online is your nationwide hub for short track racing news, video, and audio. Visit them at www.racechaseronline.com and catch them on Tuesdays and Thursdays on Speed 77 Radio on Livestream. Welcome back, race fans, to the Turn 5 Racing Podcast. This is Steve Ovens, and now joining me on the microphone is the Turn 5 Racing Podcast engineer, Brad Ovens. Brad, it's good to have you in tonight.
Thanks for having me on board. Looking forward. Everything seems to, knock on wood, be running smoothly tonight. And, I think we finally got everything pretty down pat from our first pilot episode.
Absolutely, and it's really exciting to get this off the ground, get this new equipment underneath us, and, it's been exciting both to have our drivers on tonight. It was great to hear from Cory Costa, who winner of the Empire 100. It was great to hear from Phil Yaw, who won the track championship this year at Black Rock in the IMCA Modifieds. And, I think this show, as Tom Baker was telling us, I think this show has a lot of potential as far as what we can do and the crowd that we can appeal to. And, it's just really exciting. And to think about where we came from last week with the equipment we were trying to work with and what we have now, I can't wait for the race fans to hear this.
It's definitely going to be something special. We got some better equipment in here. We've got the studio pretty much well set, the way that we're going to have it set up here. So, it's only going to get better from here.
Absolutely. And I think as far as what we can offer from race coverage to coverage out at events and bringing the audio in here. And, I think eventually everybody agrees here between Clint, myself, and you. I think we all agree that video is something that we're interested in doing at some point. But, you got to start something small, and I think that's what we're doing.
And it is, and I know it's going to be a little different now that the end of the racing season is done. But, for sure, we're obviously going to, accept all the help we can get. And, anybody out there that does race results for different tracks, we'll either, I know we've got the Turn 5 email, or we may set up something where, we can have people submit race reviews, results, and, stuff like that for us in the future here. So, we're definitely willing and open. If you've got something you want to submit, by all means send it in to us, and, it'll be something good, something for the fans to interact with the show, which I think is another big thing, that'd be good for us.
Absolutely. And the way that you can connect to us is on Facebook. Search Turn 5 Racing Podcast on Facebook. You can send us a message there. You can write a post for us. Any driver interviews that you'd like to hear on the podcast, we're certainly open to those. We are working on some driver interviews for next week's show and the upcoming week shows. So if you have any suggestions, feel free to send those to us. And let's wrap up the show with a little review of Eastern States weekend down there at the Orange County Fair Speedway. Eastern States was running its 52nd edition of the Eastern States 200. And, Brad, that is the longest continuous running dirt track race in the United States. That was something I didn't know.
And, obviously, Super Dirt Week, I think, has a bigger... Super Dirt Week, I think, would outweigh Eastern States just a little bit by the biggest venue, the week-long event that it is. I think it kind of outweighs Eastern States, but Eastern States is, I would put that number 2 as probably one of the second biggest dirt modified races in the Northeast here.
Yeah, it's certainly one of those crown jewels. You think of Super Dirt Week, you think of Eastern States, you think of Mr. Dirt Track USA.
Absolutely.
And even shows that are more recent. You think of the Florida Tour, you think of Brett Hearn's Big Show.
And of course, now you have to consider the World Finals in Charlotte.
Oh, the World Finals, absolutely. And that is one that gets a lot of PR, both print, audio, television coverage. That's going to be on CBS Sports Network.
And now that they've worked it in, that they finish out the points series in Charlotte, so we're going to have a champion crowned in Charlotte, which I think is just awesome. Yeah,
and really the champion was already crowned. Brett Hearn has really turned it on here late in the season. And, prior to going into Sunday's Eastern States 200, Hearn had won the 200 at Orange County 9 times in his past history. I think the only closest guy to him was the Doctor with 6. So, but he added number 10 on Sunday.
And that he did with fashion. We've got, obviously, if you've looked online at our Facebook page, we have a picture posted of Brett Hearn's right rear sneaker, the right rear Hoosier that he was running. And, I mean, that right rear Hoosier looked worse than my snow tires when I took them off my car last year.
204 laps on a D500 tire down at Orange County. And, they say that Orange County is a very abrasive track. Most drivers made 1, if not 2, pit stops for tires. And those that tried to make it on 1 stop still ended up getting flat tires toward the end. Orange County really, to me, sounds like the Darlington of the dirt tracks. Very abrasive, very hard on tires. Of course, Darlington has, after the Reeve pave, now maybe you might think of like Atlanta. Atlanta is very abrasive on tires for the NASCAR guys. So Orange County is very similar in that. As far as our results go, let's start with Saturday. Stuart Friesen wasn't even going to go to Eastern States. They had a rough time with the small block car at Syracuse. They blew up their motor in the Jeff Daly 44 car. He had said earlier in the week he wasn't even going to go to Eastern States, and all of a sudden, a little bit of a falling out between the Mike Petruska Atlas Paving 66 team and Danny Johnson. There was some quotes put out there in Area Auto about Danny not trying hard enough, and that's why the team dropped him. And I know you and I both have our own personal feelings about that, so we'll try and keep an open mind as we talk about that. But so regardless of the situation, the seat in the 66 car was opening up. Stuart Friesen, decides he's going to go down there. Well, if you're going to go down to Orange County, you can't just run one race. You got to run both. So they put Stuart in the small block car. Never won a race down there at Orange County, and turns around and picks up the Eastern States 100 for the small block modifieds. And that was on Saturday afternoon. Stuart Friesen picking up the win. The race did go 102 laps with a green-white checker finish. Billy Decker, who has been on a tear recently after that terrible showing at Super Dirt Week, he came home second. Chuck McKee was third. Tommy Meyer was fourth. Tim Fuller fifth. T-Mac, Tim McCready, finished sixth. And 7 through 10 was Pat Ward, Jeff Hetzler, Bob McGannon, and Billy Van Inwigen. Then we switch over. Well, so let's do the Crate Sportsman feature event. Their fast timer was Tyler Dipple, and this Tyler Dipple kid, I don't know, I started hearing about him at Super Dirt Week, and that was the first time I had heard of him, but this kid's a 14-year-old kid from Wallkill High School, and he was the class of the 27-car sportsman field. Set fast time, went out and led the 50-lap main event, and took down a win there. That was his third win at Orange County in 2013 and pushed his victory total to 11 for the season. Are you kidding me? 14 years old and a sportsman, and he's winning 11 races this year.
Well, look out.
Yeah. You better
I don't
believe
know
it.
what more else that you can say about a 14-year-old that goes out against a bunch of guys that have been doing this for a long time.
Holy smokes. Well, Dipple took down the win. Anthony Perego was second. Brian Crummell was third. Andrew Reeves fourth. Shane Jablanca was fifth. 6 through 10 was Christian Rumsey, Michael Sabia, Mike Butler, Robbie Speed, and 10th was Joe Conklin. Street stock feature finish, 25 laps. Charlie Holtailing took the win there. Mike Vigiletti, and again I will go back to my precursor saying I apologize if I'm butchering anybody's names here. Ray Tarantino was third. Tim Southard was fourth. Emerson Cargan Sr. was fifth, 6 through 10. Charlie Donald, Ray C. Jr., John Heckinger, Robert Palmer, and 10th was Buck Barrett. Then Sunday, the big day for Orange County, Eastern States 200. And this race had some interesting events. You may have noticed on our Turn 5 Racing Podcast Facebook page, we did post the video of one Andy Bicchetti and Donnie Corellis tangling again at Orange County after they had issues there at Super Dirt Week.
And, it seems like every year that we go to Eastern States weekend, there's a rivalry between two drivers, whether it be from Super Dirt Week at the Moody Mile or throughout the season. I remember back in the back, as you said a few days ago, back in the late 90s between the corporate jet and the doctor.
Yes.
There was a long running rivalry through many cars for both of those guys at Eastern States weekend, so Eastern States, tempers flare, you're on a we'll call it a big venue on a small track, so
yeah,
it's a lot more door-to-door racing, and it's more of a short track race than you would say Super Dirt Week.
Certainly, and the whole feud between Donnie Corellis, Ronnie Johnson, and Andy Bicchetti certainly spilled out from Super Dirt Week over into Eastern States. Apparently there was some contact between the Bicchetti and Corellis machines. Bicchetti was not able to finish the race. His car was stopped on the backstretch. Grabs the steering wheel, throws the steering wheel at Donnie Corellis. Next time around, he grabs a clump of clay and throws that. And then what we assume to be either race officials, I don't believe they were dirt car officials, but what appears to be race officials out onto the track, trying to get Andy off the track into safety. Had Matt Shepard stopping by and filling his crew in on the fight going on. But really kind of an unfortunate event. We don't want an event like that taking on an incident. Really not a racing on the track incident. You got a guy, tempers flaring a little bit, and the thing that I think is unfortunate is that's probably what people are going to remember that race for. Yeah, they're going to remember that Brett Hearn won his 10th Eastern States 200, but they're going to also remember that Andy Bicchetti threw a steering wheel and a clump of clay on the backstretch.
Yeah, I think it's going to be something that's remembered. Of course, with YouTube, like we have it, we've got the video posted on our webpage on Facebook. It's definitely going to circulate out there. There's probably going to be more videos of that from everybody's got a cell phone with a camera on it now. So everything that happens at a racetrack, anything that happens in public, they used to say what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, but now it's, whatever happens in Vegas stays on YouTube. So.
Well, what happens at Eastern States stays on YouTube.
But,
we'll be watching that for years to come.
I think I got to make a phone call this week and call up Smoke and get Andy added to the helmet throwing contest this year at the awards banquet.
Absolutely. Okay, Eastern States 200. Yep, Brett Hearn got number 10. But really, not just getting number 10, but got number 10 and put on a clinic of tire conservation. 204 laps on a right rear Hoosier. And that tire, as you can see on our Facebook page, was worse than the snow tires you took off your car last year. It was getting down there. He actually was quoted as saying he only thought he had 4 more laps left on that tire. So it's a good thing they didn't go any more cautions there at the end, or Brett would have been in a lot of trouble. And just to give you the background on Eastern States, the pit rule was you had to make a pit stop after lap 60 for fuel, but if you wanted to change a tire, you had to come back into the pits. You couldn't do fuel and tires at the same time. You had to come in and make a separate pit stop, because as the race fans that have ever been to Eastern States or Orange County would know, that's a very, very treacherous pit road. So Brett Hearn played the fuel strategy and the tire conservation just right. Went 204 laps to pull down the win. Stuart Friesen, who had a fast car in the Atlas Paving 66, came home second. Tim Heinley, who had a top 5 finish at Super Dirt Week, pulls home another top 5 finish at Eastern States. He finished third. Jimmy Phelps, fourth. Tommy Meyer, picking up a top 5 after finishing in the top 10 in the small block race, was fifth. 6 through 10, Gary Edwards Jr., Danny Johnson, who was putting on a show, but I believe had a tire issue late in the race. He fell back to 7th. Jimmy Horton was 8th. T-Mac was 9th. And Keith Flack rounded out the top 10. So that is the action from Orange County. And now all they have left is the World Finals coming up next weekend down in Charlotte.
And, obviously, as you were saying before, that is going to be a televised event. It won't be a live televised event as it was in the past. But we also want to remind all the fans out there that, miss seeing all the rush hour on dirt and all the TV coverage that the dirt racing used to get starting here in the first Sunday of November, straight into December. Every Sunday on CBS Sports, you can catch all of the World of Outlaw sprint cars, World of Outlaw late models, and various dirt track racing events on CBS Sports. Check with your local providers on times and locations of those shows. But definitely something you want to check out, something cool. I like that CBS Sports came on board with dirt this year, and it's really, really cool that the dirt track racing's getting some publicity back, and obviously with the Speed Channel gone now, it's a lot harder than it used to be. But
sure,
CBS Sports being a great group of guys and gals there, really helping out the dirt community.
Yeah, and I think their coverage is going to be really exciting. I saw some of the guys at Super Dirt Week that are covering the race, and they're just doing a bang-up job like these networks have done in the past, and really these guys know what they're doing, and I'm excited to see what coverage they bring to us. And speaking of coverage, we'll do a little preview of next week's show. We've got the 2013 Black Rock front-wheel drive champion, Jeremy Trank, is going to join us on Turn 5. We're also, hopefully, we're working on it, going to talk to Ryan Smith from down in Pennsylvania. He was driver of the Donnie Kreitz machine this year down at Williams Grove, picked up a win down at Williams Grove. He just got hired on full-time for the number 94 sprint car for next year, and he's getting ready for his first race with that team, and that's going to be down at the World Finals. We're going to try and catch up with him next Wednesday night on Turn 5. Brad, great first show with the new equipment. I'm excited for everybody to hear it, And please, please, please share with all your friends. Share it on Facebook. Send them the YouTube link. Do whatever you got to do. You can find us on iTunes. We just got approved for iTunes yesterday. A lot of exciting stuff happening here on Turn 5.
Absolutely. I thank everybody for listening. And as he said, share. We can't share it enough. And like I said, we've got our Facebook page, looking for fan interaction. Leave us posts, leave us comments, what you think of the show, what you want to see on the show, what you think could do a little better. If you want to see your favorite driver, we post pictures, post on the website, Facebook page, Turn 5 Racing Podcast. Let us know, and we're here for you guys. So whatever you guys want to see, we can do our best to make it happen for you.
You got it. Oh, one more guest I forgot next week. Dan Kapazinski. Danny K. Danny K from Oswego Speedway is going to join us next Wednesday night. I almost forgot about that. But good friend of ours, Danny K. He'll be joining us on Turn 5. Well, folks, for Clint Miller, Brad Ovens, Race Chaser Online, and Tom Baker, Penn Electronics, and Clint Miller, Stu Ovens, and Creekside Entertainment, for everybody here at the Turn 5 podcast, I'm Steve Ovens. Race fans, be sure to check it before you wreck it.